So good afternoon. Good afternoon, Fadi. So today we have a very special guest, Fadi Asli, who is frequently criticizing our government on Facebook, especially recently. So I decided to invite him in our program in order to discuss the current issues, especially issues related to post-coronavirus economy of Georgia, which is kind of tanking, going down. So what do you think, what government has done correctly and has done wrongly with regard of this crisis?
I think the government did very well to close very early. This is my opinion, because the earlier they closed, the more protected we were. And also, I mean, to be very objective and to compare ourselves to other countries, mainly in Europe, the lockdown was not as dramatic as it was, like, say, in Italy or in Spain, where people were locked like for a month inside their apartments, or even in the United Arab Emirates. People were locked inside their apartment. They didn't have the right to go out.
Yeah, we are not very familiar with other countries.
Yeah.
I do not know what was happening in Arab Emirates, for example.
Yeah, so to compare to other countries, I believe that our lockdown was milder. And it was also progressive. And of course, it resulted in a very limited number of casualties. I mean, all in all, up to today, we have 15 people who died. Now, also here we have an issue, whether they died because of the virus or from the or with the virus, okay? But still, I mean, compared to most of the countries, we have very good ratio of death per million. Nevertheless, you know, the issue of the lockdown has been widely discussed internationally by experts everywhere. And the question that always came from the very beginning was, okay, I mean, we locked down, but how are we going to open? Because if we open and there is another wave of virus, then we will have to lock down again. And locking down has a terrible cost on the economy. And when I speak of the economy, I'm not speaking about money. I'm speaking about people who lose their jobs, about their livelihoods, about the fact that they cannot feed their families anymore, about the fact that they have depression, that they become alcoholic, that they use drugs more, that they have cancers, that they have heart attacks, that suicides. So.
Yeah, and it is statistically proven already.
Yeah, it is statistically proven.
It's like numbers.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, it is proven statistically throughout the years before that for every, whenever people lose jobs, 4% of the people who lose their jobs die within the coming 5 years of depression-related illnesses.
Right.
So, today we are at a situation where the government is trying to open up, but at the same time they're very scared for two reasons. On one hand, they don't want to have more people infected with the virus. On the other hand, they are heading towards the elections and they want to capitalize on the good management between bracket of the crisis. And therefore, they're ready to sacrifice 3 or 4 months without tourism, closing the borders, just to make sure that there is no error and there is no recrudescence of infections. And then people will say, oh, you didn't manage the crisis well, etc. So this kind of thinking has a very detrimental effect on the economy and on the life of people. I mean, the Prime Minister himself said a couple of months ago that they assume that about 350,000 people will lose their jobs. I mean, 350,000 people in a very poor country who are left without income. I mean, it's a huge number. I mean, this is taking Georgia very deep in poverty.
And these are only people who lose jobs, and there are more who are just getting less salary.
Yes, many people have salary cut.
Yeah.
Then don't forget that many farmers, especially those who sell cherries and peaches and the seasonal, and who rely mainly on people who stop on the side of the road to buy from them. They don't send even to the market. Those guys had to throw their crops. So, I mean, you know, they have those crops, they sell them during a month, and then with this money they live the whole year. So those guys are left also without money. So our point is that for the government to open up, we are not requesting the government to open up everything in one day, but also there is a certain speed that they need to follow. Now today they open with 5 countries. There are other countries besides those 5 that have very little infection rate. And with those countries, they need to open. They shouldn't wait for those other countries to clear Georgia. I mean, we need to open. And this was the whole idea of this government. If you remember from the very beginning, they said we are doing this so we can open our touristic season. Now, if you also look at the economic structure of the country, if you take tourism plus travel together, they represent 34% of the GDP of the country. Georgia has the highest ratio among all the countries of Europe and the region. It is even higher than Croatia, higher than Montenegro, higher than Cyprus, that is a typical touristic destination. So when you depend so much on tourism for your economy, you cannot miss a year, a complete year, because you will throw a whole sector, the most important sector, you will throw them on the floor, that you will destroy them totally. Another point that I would like to bring regarding this issue, because we heard the Minister of Finance who said, oh, you know, even if we open up, I mean, how many tourists will come? It's not a matter of tourists who are coming, just to go and visit Chateau Mary, and no, it's not this. Many tourists who come here to Georgia, they like the country. Then they end up buying an apartment, okay, or an asset, or they decide to start a business. So it's not, we don't, when we speak of tourists visiting or visitors, we don't speak about they spent $1,000 and they left. No, many of them make big investments in the country.
Okay, I may ask something here. So these tourists are mostly Russians, like, and there was some backlash from especially national movement, political party, which was very concerned that Russian citizens are buying Georgian apartments in Georgia. So what do you think with this regard? Is some kind of security issue also, or are you okay with, for example, Russian tourists buying?
I don't. If this is the point, the optic of the national movement, I don't share it at all.
Me too.
I think that I believe in open economy. I believe that money has no smell.
Right.
I believe that whoever puts $1 in Georgia is contributing to the wealth of a Georgian somewhere. And I don't think that people who are buying apartments here have political agendas, whether they're Russians or Azeris or Armenian or Iranians or whatever.
Right.
So I believe that we need to open up our economy. Personally, I also believe that any Russian company that would like to invest in Georgia is welcome, as long as they don't invest in strategic assets, like taking a port, for example, or buying the airport, or where they could have a political leverage on the country. But if someone wants to come do agriculture or build a factory to manufacture underwear, they are welcome. We shouldn't say, oh, they're Russians, we should not let them. No, our country is very small and needs any single investor. And we cannot be very demanding now who we want and who we don't want. This is the way we see it.
Yeah, everything which makes our country richer makes also stronger with any conflict with Russia.
Definitely.
So, and again, this money doesn't smell, right? So I think they are kind of shooting their own foot. So like it is actually harming Georgian security if we are becoming poor. And I 100% agree with you, whatever you just said about this, Russian tourists coming or Russian companies coming. And we should understand that it's the only thing which is making us rich, trading with other people. And another thing is, even if Russians are coming here, when they are coming here, they are actually running away from Putin's Russia, right? They like to live here, to work here, to buy apartment here. They are saying that we like here more than in Russia. So we should be proud of it, I guess, and we should celebrate it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, the more Russian tourists come, the better reputation we will have in Russia.
Right.
If we have no links with Russia whatsoever, at all, no tourists come, nothing, you know, the reputation will be the kind of negative that, oh, we're in war with those guys, we don't have. But when you have people coming, they love Georgia, they enjoy the food, they enjoy the landscape, they enjoy the Georgian people who are very warm and very hospitable. When they go back, they can play a very positive role in changing the mentality of the government even, you know, I mean, when there is, or the authorities, I mean, you know, you have lobbyists who are inside and who are speaking on your behalf. So I believe that it would be an error to prohibit the Russian tourists from coming here or tourists from any destination. I believe that Russian businesses should be allowed to operate in Georgia as long as they don't get involved into strategic businesses that can harm the country if they decide to turn it political.
From a libertarian point of view, it's very difficult to define what is strategic object and what is not.
Yeah, it is very easy. Any strategic asset is an asset not to sell to any foreign,
for example, railway is strategic object.
Railway is strategic.
Okay.
In my opinion, railway is very strategic. Okay, let's assume that the Russians buy the port and the railway. Okay. And then one day they decide to suffocate Georgia, and they stop the port and they stop the railway. We will be dead in 1 month.
Okay.
So you cannot have objects that are vital for your economy and for your for the well-being of your citizen and for your survival in the hands of someone who can turn it against you. So it's very easy to define. The airport. If they privatize the airport and one day they decide we're not going to operate the airport.
I just think we should have many airports. Maybe one will be built by Russians, but another will be built by Turks, Chinese or Americans. And when they are in competition, it's impossible to just shut down.
Yeah, it's true. But also, you know, businesses are not charity organizations. You know, when they get somewhere, they see the market, they see there is a market for it, who are the competitors, if they can make money out of it. Otherwise, they won't do it unless it's a political investment.
Right.
We should. So, I mean, today you speak of a new airport. Yes, I'm sure there will be a new airport, but there are also commitments of the Georgian government with the Tbilisi airport, with the TAV, urban.
Right, I know.
Okay, so within a radius of 100 kilometers, there cannot be an airport. Okay, so all those things need to be taken into consideration.
Yes, and as far as we are talking about these flights and airports, like the company which is called, I guess, Vizier, was kind of reluctant. They said that they are stopping their office here, their airport here, as far as I understand, but they will resume as soon as the government will decide. So what do you think about it?
Let me tell you, you know, airlines, you know, they're not Khachapuri kiosks, okay? They close today, they open tomorrow.
Right.
They have planes, they have routes, they have crews, and they need to put them on lines. And they usually prepare their schedule 6-7 months before the season or a year before the season. So let's assume that in a month's time the Georgian authorities will say, okay, we are ready. already those planes are on other routes. They are flying. They're not going to stop routes and tickets that they have already sold to come to Georgia. So honestly, I don't believe that this year Wizz Air will operate. This is my opinion. Or maybe they can operate some charter flights, but it will not be a regular. This is my opinion. I might be mistaken, but knowing how the airlines work, I would be very surprised if they would operate this year. Having said that, they made a lot of money in the past year or two operating here, and they are a commercial operation. So if there is money for them here, they will open in 2021 for sure. If everything is back to normal, they will open. But this year we can forget about it, I guess.
Okay, that's sad, but Georgian government also decided to put some kind of double standard against Georgian citizens returning from other countries and foreigners coming here. And you posted about this on Facebook. I read it. What do you think is, I understand what's the problem about double standards, but how else it's maybe harmful for mindset either of our Georgian people or for economy, for example?
Look, let me tell you. First of all, it is anti-constitutional. It's against the constitution. You cannot treat even a foreigner less well than the Georgians. Everyone is equal. Here you are treating foreigners better than the Georgians. I mean, it's not only anti-constitutional, it's shocking. I mean, how could they even think about it? And we heard a couple of explanations. The first explanation was that the Georgians come here and they have families here and they hug and kiss and which is a total bullshit explanation. Because you have many Georgians who have Germans and French passports and Baltic passports. Okay, so those guys can enter because they have a German passport, and what they come here, they will not kiss their families and their friends. I mean, really, the government think that people are idiots, and they come with excuses. I mean, either they're idiots or they think that we are idiots. So now, honestly, what I can conclude is that the government doesn't want Georgians to come back to Georgia, and they don't want the Georgians to leave Georgia. Because I have heard from diplomatic circles the day before yesterday that many Georgians who were traveling abroad with Erzina to Amsterdam, they were refused to board on the plane because they didn't have a residency in the country, or like in the Netherlands. The law doesn't say that you cannot go to the country if you don't have a residency.
Residency, you mean like
a residency card? This means that they don't live in Holland.
Ah, okay. So if I booked at a hotel, for example, that is not enough, right?
No, they want to see that you are a resident of the Netherlands, for example, which is totally illegal. Yeah, it's just like whatever we had in the Soviet Union. Like. So they are not letting you in, and they don't want to let you out. And why? I mean, that's my question. Because maybe if you go out, then you have to come in. And if you come in, maybe you have the coronavirus. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to understand the logic, which is a totally fucked up logic. Totally. So this is shocking, but what is even more shocking is that I didn't really hear many Georgians protesting.
It's another issue. Like, you know, when we are looking at this corona policies, almost all of them were, for me, like either stupid or counterproductive, or counterproductive. I mean, this may be spreading this virus even more. Like, you know, there were huge lines at the Carrefour and other supermarkets caused because of these policies. So, and Georgian citizens somehow accepted it, and we know that Georgian Dreams rating went up, and it's kind of disappointing for me. What do you think about political? We have some elections, right? What do you think how Georgian people will decide leave our government in its place or change it? Or
look, you know, I mean, from previous experience over the past years and years, you know what, most of the Georgians don't decide whether the government should stay or leave on the basis of their experience with the government. Unfortunately, most of them decide on the basis of how much they receive to vote for this candidate or that candidate. Corruption has been, a bribery of voters have been a real problem over the past years. And we have seen during the presidential elections how people were bribed with 2 kilos of potatoes and onions. So if you're ready to sacrifice the future of your children for 2 kilos of potatoes and onions, then you deserve the government you are voting for, okay? I mean, let's agree on it. One thing for sure, the coronavirus, the management of the coronavirus, which was pretty good as a matter of fact when you see the results, because you judge on the results, you don't judge on the process.
We can talk about this also.
Yes.
Like, what's the difference between Armenia and Georgia? Why they had this crisis much more exaggerated in Georgia?
Yeah, we will reach this point, but so the government gained a capital of trust, and of course their rating went up. And also, I mean, we have to admit, I mean, you know, I'm a very objective person. You know me, I criticize the government all the time, but I also have to admit that they really did their best. I mean, really. No one can say that the prime minister was, I don't know, spending his time at the beach, or they were all working 24/7.
Okay, but let me interrupt you. When we are talking about this is only one side, right? They maybe have done whatever they could to protect people from spreading this virus, but at this time, at what expense? I mean, economy, we know this statistical data that economy, April, May, June is not released yet, so it was huge
fall in the GDP.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So at what expense?
Look, I mean, here you're preaching the choir, because this is what I repeat all the time. I believe personally that we will have a recession of 8% by the end of 2020 in lari, and about 9.5% in dollar. This is where we will be standing. Now, you were speaking about Armenia and Georgia. You know, I always say that the corona thing is not a sprint race, it is a marathon race. It's not a speed race. The corona is staying with us for a very long period of time. I don't think that there will be a vaccine in the coming months. It might take a year or a year and a half or 2 years to have a proper vaccine.
It may never exist, actually.
Yeah,
because
maybe
we had other coronaviruses,
maybe.
we do not have
I
against
know,
them.
I agree. So, what does it mean? It means that those who did not die in February, March, and April and May might die in October, November, December, or maybe next March, April, May, okay? Because the virus will come back. And the problem of the lockdown is that you create greenhouse conditions, like an aseptic environment. And whenever you remove this greenhouse, the virus comes again and hits again. Now, if you look at Armenia, Armenians, first of all, you asked me a question, why Armenia they have more? As far as I know, in the months of March and April, a lot of Armenians who were living in Russia flew back to Yerevan to seek treatment from coronavirus, because it was free in Armenia for them, where in Russia they had to pay for the treatment. Okay. So you had many Armenians with the coronavirus who flew back to Armenia. And probably that was one of the reasons why the virus spread so much over there. Now, if you look at the figures today, you have like 300-400 people who died already in Armenia from the virus. Nevertheless, if the infection would spread in Armenia, the way they have spread in Sweden, for example, on one hand, they will be closer to herd immunity than we are in Georgia. This means if the virus will hit again in December, then we will have many, or either we will have to lock down again and screw our economy totally, or we will have to keep open and accept those infections, and then those who didn't die last year will die next year, okay? This is what will happen, and the total number of deaths everywhere per million will be approximately the same, around 300 per million or 400 per million.
And it was never about it. It was about flattening the curve in order to protect the healthcare system.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But this was originally. But then they changed. Right. Okay. Then they said, no, now we have to make sure that no one gets any infection. Okay. So when you look at it, this is how it is. But we need, look, I mean, when you look at the coronavirus, now we learn a lot in the past 5-6 months. We learned that people who are 65 and above are those who die. Right. Those who are under 65 are very unlikely to die. For the people who are 65 and under, the coronavirus is not more dangerous than a common flu, for those who are under 65, okay? Then we learned that life expectancy plays a huge role. The higher the life expectancy in a country, the more people die. The lower life expectancy, the less people die.
Because they have old people.
For example, if you go to Nigeria, where the life expectancy is 50, then even if everyone has coronavirus, the death per million will be very low because you have very few people who are above this age. If you go to Sweden, where the life expectancy is 82 years, they will have more, or Italy or Spain or France, they will have more death than Georgia, where our life expectancy is 72 years. So this is a second thing that is very important. Then people with chronic illnesses and diseases, diabetes, kidney problems,
especially obese people,
obesity and all those things, heart conditions, cancer, those people are much more fragile and would die from, okay, even if they're younger than 65. Right. So we have to learn to live with the virus. What does it mean? It means that, first of all, we have to protect the elderly, just to make sure that they wear masks, that they don't get involved with other people.
And you know, in New York City and in Italy especially, they didn't protect, and in Sweden also, they failed to protect elderly people in the nursing houses, homes. Yeah. And it was the main issue why they had such a high number.
Exactly, more than 50% of the dead in Italy, in Sweden, and in New York were in nursing homes. Fortunately, in Georgia, we don't have nursing homes.
Yes.
But in Georgia, you have 3 or 4 generations sometimes who live under the same roof. And those people who live with the elderly parents have to be careful, and the government or the health authority need to come with recommendations regarding those people, what to do. Right. This is important. So this is one. 2, we have to learn to take care also of the people who have health conditions. Also, recommendations for them, what to do, where to go, what to wear, when to go out, how to go out. It needs to be explained to them. Then we need to also keep health hygiene. This means always wash our hands, not touch things in the underground or in the bus or in public places, and put our hands in our own. Okay, so we need, it has to become a habit. Basic hygiene, right? Basic hygiene, okay? And social distancing. Now, for example, I'm sitting at 2 meters from you. Normally, maybe I would have sat here. But we have to learn that from now on we have to keep some distance.
Yeah, and Georgian like to, when they are meeting each other, kiss each other.
This we need
maybe
to
we should forget it.
Yeah, we need to change our habits. And then we have to open our country and let people live and let people have a normal life with this new lifestyle that we have to adapt to. It's not too difficult and not too bad, but to lock up everyone inside their houses just to protect the elderly, this is wrong, okay?
Stupid.
And we shouldn't forget that, you know, locking up people creates psychological problems. And we will see now a lot of, yesterday, we have seen a guy in Gildani shooting randomly from his balcony or his, okay. I mean, we'll see a lot of those things. We'll see a lot of suicides because this stress.
To make sure, we are not, we do not know what was the reason for that. Another guy killed their parents, but we may just contemplate that it may be these issues may be related.
It can affect. Then domestic violence. During the lockdown, I mean, how many spouses have beaten up their children, their spouses? So we have to take all this into consideration. It's not only counting how many people died from the coronavirus. It's not like this. There are other casualties that you have.
For government, it does not count. That's why they are only, they care about only the numbers, about statistics of people dying from coronavirus. Because they don't care about other issues, because of economic issues, because of psychiatric issues or psychological issues.
Because
and I think it is the fundamental problem.
Agenda. I mean, because they have a political agenda, because they're looking for the elections. So anything that can help them win the elections, they will do it even if it kills 20,000 people in 5 years. They don't care. I mean, let's agree. But it is your role, and it's my role, and it's the role of everyone who knows to have the courage to speak about it, even if the government gets upset about it, or the government supporters get angry about it. But we have to speak about it, because the more we speak about it, the more government will be cautious, and the more they will readjust their policies to take those things into consideration.
Yeah, their approval numbers will go down, and they will say, oh, this may be too much we are doing there. Yeah. And with that, let's now move toward another question I wanted to ask, like role of business in Georgia. We have seen that business also kind of accepted all these lockdowns, especially business which was involved in tourism. You know, they are looking at their business dying out, right? And some of them are saying some things. Many more are silent. What do you think? And it is not like kind of new issue. We know that business always wanted to kind of refrain from criticizing the government. Whatever government, it was the same during the previous government, same during Georgian Dream. Why? What do you think is the reason for that? Why business is so reluctant to criticize government, or saying that government regulations or taxes or whatever is killing us and it's not helping us, and people are getting poor because of this?
Look, I'll tell you, because we live in a system, not only now, but even during the Saakashvili's time or during the Shevardnadze's time, where government retaliates from businesses and businesses speak out. I tell you, I remember in 2005 when I was criticizing Saakashvili's government for arresting businessmen, putting them in jail in 2004, 2005. In 2005, our company was audited 5 times in a row. 5 times in a row. We were under permanent audit. They were making our life impossible, which prompted me to send a letter to President Saakashvili thanking him for sending me the tax department all the time, so our accountant doesn't make mistakes. So there is a history whereby if you open your mouth, you have a visit from the revenue service or from the prosecutor office, or they find something on you, or So people, you know, business people, they don't want problems. They want to do their business, and they're scared to talk. Okay. Now, me, I'm crazy. I mean, I sacrifice my business because I love Georgia, and I say, it's okay, I'm making money in other countries, but I love this country. I will say the truth, and I will defend my members. I'm the chairman of the International Chamber of Commerce. I have people who have problems. I have to defend them. So I criticize. And then they keep me like, you know, an animal in the zoo. That you see, we have freedom. Look, Fadi Asli, he speaks. Yesterday on TV, what's his name? The head of the, at the parliamentary, what's his name? This guy from parliament, I forgot his name.
From Georgian Dream?
Yeah, older guy, a little, anyway.
Volsky?
Yes, Volsky. He said, look, Fadi Asli speaks all the time. Who tells him anything? Okay, and other businesses express their opinion. No one tells them. So they consider us like like cases. Like, look, no. But in reality, if it wasn't me, because I have a big mouth and I have very good connections with the international community and with the embassies and with everyone, and if they attack me, then there will be a political price for it. No one dares to speak, because they will close their business. They will find something. They will penalize them. They will take them to court. They will make their life hell. So businesses are scared. They don't talk. And unfortunately, the head of the business organizations in general, bar 2 or 3 of them who are brave and who are talking, also, they have their own businesses. So they are scared. But I mean, I consider that when you decide to head a business organization, then you don't belong to your business anymore. You belong to the people who voted for you to head this business organization to protect their interests. You cannot say, oh no, but if I say this, then that will stop my business. Then don't run for a business organization. So then there's another point that even during the Soviet times, Georgians are used to solve their problems behind the scenes, through their family connections, their friendly connections. Whenever they have a problem, you know, they go to their cousin who knows someone in government, and they go and, okay, how do you want how much do you want to solve it? And let's solve it friendly. And this is how it happens. And this mentality prevails and exists until now. You know, me as the chairman of the ICC, people who come to me with their problem, this means that they couldn't solve their problems through their usual connection. And that's why they come to me when they have exhausted all other avenues, okay? And this is what makes the government strong and controlling businesses, because they know that businesses will come back to them. And this is a avenue for corruption, because, you know, when you have a problem and you solve it behind the curtain, they don't solve it because you have beautiful eyes. They solve it because they receive money to solve it.
Either directly or indirectly.
Okay,
somehow.
or because you will stop talking. If you were like politically engaged with the previous government, then they control you like this, that, okay, we will not touch you anymore, but now you shut up, okay?
If you will not, then, you know.
Yeah, then again we will send and then finish. No one can help you, okay? So that's the problem of businesses. And even business organizations are very weak here in Georgia. I'll tell you, I mean, if we had normal business organizations and the government came with a bad law or something outrageous, then business organization can declare a day or 2 of strike and stop all businesses in Georgia, okay? And this is a huge pressure on the government. But I have never seen it here. It happens in other countries.
You know, but this government came into power partly because they were saying we are better with regard especially to business, you know. We are, like Saakashvili was so bad, and we know he was bad, but we are better, we will not do it. Do you see any, I'm sure you see change in the attitude of the government toward business. But I think it's like, it's now different now, but how to say it, like it moved in positive direction, or it just stayed the same, or even...
I will tell you, it is different. It is not, you cannot, it's different. It is bad, but in a different way.
Okay, that's what
I mean, during the Saakashvili's time, they would send you the revenue service. There was a law that was saying if you owe more than 25,000 lari in taxes and penalties, then it becomes a criminal case. So they would send the financial police to you. They will find what's 25,000 lari? It's nothing, okay? And even if it's not 25,000 lari, they will make it 25,000 lari with the penalties and the interest. And then they will take you and start negotiating with you. You have to pay 100,000 lari, or you go to jail. Or they would jail someone like their political opponents. They would jail them. Or they would stop their businesses, okay? This is what the Saakashvili's government was doing. Those, they're not doing this. But those, When you are a small business, usually they don't touch you. But if you have a business and you go to do something, then you are facing corruption. This means, let's say you have a piece of land on which you want to build a development, and the K2 is 4, the coefficient of construction is 4, and you go to the municipality, for example, they will tell you, no, we downgraded your coefficient of construction to 1 or 0.6. This means now you cannot build a building, you can build a house for yourself. And you bought a land of 3,000–4,000 meters, you're not going to build a house on 3,000–4,000 meters. Then you say, but this is illegal, you cannot do it. I will go to court. I will tell you, yes, go to court. It will take 2–3 years, or pay us $20,000 and we will sign it now. Okay? So those things are happening. Okay? Those things are happening. Then there are other problems.
So they are more sophisticated.
They're not more sophisticated. We're back to corruption, the Shevardnadze's times.
Okay.
Okay? It's not sophisticated at all. I mean, Saakashvili, they were ruthless. Saakashvili were more sophisticated because at least they were using the law. Okay? They were using the law to racketeer you. Those guys, that's blunt corruption. Then if you have a bigger business and one of your of the competitors who's close to the government wants your business, then they create problems for you. They throw you out of business. If you want to start a big business, you cannot do it if you don't do it with someone who's close to Ivanishvili and his, you know, his cronies. Then foreign investors are having a very hard time in Georgia because Ivanishvili doesn't want foreign investors here. The Ivanishvili period is the worst period ever in Georgia for foreign investors. I don't remember. I mean, I'm heading a business organization for 22 years. I don't remember any period, even during Shevardnadze, where foreign investors had as many problems as under Ivanishvili. I mean, by far. I don't remember now any foreign investor who won a court case during those past 2 years. I don't remember any foreigner who won a court case during those. I mean, there is a real xenophobic agenda against foreign investors and foreigners in Georgia since 8 years, and I see it every day.
Okay, thank you. And with that regard, as far as we are talking about business, and you mentioned these cronies, right? We at Girchi do not like when business is in bed with government, you know, and especially during the last times we are hearing the criticism of the government and this criticism is about allowing some companies to win the tender competition. And then these companies, these business companies, are starting to
donate money
to the ruling party. And it's kind of going on and on for quite some time. What do you think about this?
I think this is business as usual in Georgia. It has been like this under Saakashvili and it has been like this under Shevardnadze. Always, I mean, during the Saakashvili's time, businesses that were winning the tenders were the businesses that were very close to the national movement. No, otherwise, no one could win if you were not close to the national movement.
How can we stop it? Like,
you need political will. You need political will. You need someone. You know, when Saakashvili came in power, he said we want to stop corruption in the police. He fired the traffic police and he left the country 6–7 months without traffic police. And he hired young university students and he made them traffic policemen. And during those 6–7 months, criminality decreased by 60%. But there was a political will to stop corruption. But there was no political will to fix the courts. Today there is no political will to stop corruption. There is no political will to fix the courts. There is no political will to improve the country. We have a guy who made his fortune through bribery in Russia because everyone was doing like this. And this is how he knows it. And he doesn't know more than this. And you speak to him today of doing business without corruption, he is shocked. He cannot understand it. It's impossible because he is a product of the Soviet Union. You cannot bring a guy who's a product of the Soviet Union and tell him, okay, turn Georgia now into a Western country. It does not work. You have to bring a guy who has a Western education, who has lived abroad, who knows how it works abroad. So it's a matter of mentality, it's a matter of political will. What do you think all those guys who are corrupt under the Ivanishvili government, they're doing it without the knowledge of Ivanishvili? Of course not.
I don't believe it.
Of course not. I mean, quite to the opposite. Maybe with his encouragement, not with his knowledge only. That, okay, guys, go make money, but don't come to me, ask me for money. Okay?
Yeah. Yes. So when we're talking about this post-corona world and how economy will function in this world, there are different voices to hear, and one of the voices like Giyah, for example, he said, and it's not only his opinion, just I'm just saying him as an example. He said that we need to move toward more protectionist policies, like, because we can't so easily trade with our other countries anymore. We need to be self-sufficient. We need to understand that it's now new normal, what they call it, new reality. I don't know. And what do you think? I think it's quite counterproductive, because
I don't agree with this approach at all. We at the ICC, we are the largest business organization in the world. We believe in open market economy. We believe in free exchange between countries. We believe in free trade agreements. We believe in open borders. This is how wealth goes from one country to another.
Right.
Wealth doesn't go from one country in another by living in autarky, closing on ourselves and protecting ours. What can you protect when you are a country as small as Georgia? How can you protect yourself from Turkish products coming here when one factory in Turkey is the size of Emirati? I mean, even
if we can protect, it will be harmful for consumers, right? Consumers will need to pay much more and become
of
poor.
Course. You have to open. You have to free competition. Free competition means lower prices, better services, better quality of products.
Right. If you can't compete with them, then it's not a good choice to just close border. It's like a Soviet style.
Look, exactly. That's the Soviet Union. I mean, I was not in this part of the world during the Soviet times, but the people who are 40 years and above and who lived during the Soviet times, they knew when you go to a shop, what was the quality? You want to buy chocolates or juice or whatever. I mean, you had one brand that was selling chocolate or juice or okay,
very high quality.
And then that was it. But then when products started coming from the West and people could compare, what happened is two things. First of all, the taste of the consumer changed, and then the local producers started improving their quality so they can compete. Right. And the best example is the Georgian wines. I mean, the Georgian wines today are at the level of the best Western wines. But I remember a fantastic story. I will tell you the story, which is a fantastic one. You know, when Pernod Ricard, the French company, bought GWS in the early 1990s, it's a French company, they tested the wine. And they discovered that the iron content in the wine was very high.
Okay.
And it was so high that it was almost at the toxic level, because the wine was stored in iron barrels, not in wooden barrels.
It was coming from that.
Yeah, it was coming from, okay. And then there was a very big debate at the headquarters of Pernod Ricard in France. What should we do? I mean, safety or consumer taste, because they got used to this taste. Then if we change to wood, then no one will buy the wine anymore. Finally, safety prevailed. And they decided to move all the wines from the iron barrel to wooden barrel, and the new crop, the new vintage was made in wood. And then when they came with the first vintage that came from the wood, they had their hands on their heart. They were very scared. I mean, how would the consumer react? No one noticed anything. And
so they were afraid.
And the Pernod Ricard guy said, okay, the Georgians are very heavy drinkers, but they understand nothing about quality of wine, okay? So this was during the Soviet times, okay?
And as far as we are talking about wine, government decided to subsidize wineries, or what it's called, so we are moving back to the Shevardnadze time.
This is political. This is for election purposes.
Right.
And even during the Saakashvili's time, they were also paying.
They were. Georgian Dream actually stopped it like 2 years ago, as far as I can remember.
We are, as the ICC, against the principle of subsidies. We believe that subsidies create artificial economies that are not viable on their own, and that would collapse. We believe that in market offer and demand. I mean, if we have a, let's say, a need for 30,000 tons of white grapes, and there's a production of 40,000 tons, then you have 10,000 tons that needs to be removed from the market. And some farmers will have to remove their part of their, what you can do, you can regulate the hectares of white grape or red grape or whatever, okay?
What's the reason for that?
So you don't have to subsidize it if you really want to have. I am against it, but that's another way. I mean, instead of subsidizing, in Israel they done it a lot for many things. They say, okay, this year we're going to plant 4,000 hectares of tomatoes. No one, you cannot plant more than 4,000 hectares, just to keep the prices, at a normal level, so farmers don't throw their crops and government doesn't have to subsidize. Okay, that's another way of doing it.
Yeah, it's kind of, government is always trying to explain it as if it is kind of Georgian tradition, and it is Georgian tradition maybe, but if this farmers can't sell so much grapes or wine, I don't know, maybe it's not so profitable. Maybe they should be doing something else.
Yeah, I'll give you an example, which I know since 10, 12 years, because it struck me a lot. 12 years ago or 14 years ago, the farmers had to throw their white grapes for wine, They had to throw because there was an overproduction. So I was looking into the statistics of grapes, and I discovered that we had a huge overproduction of white grapes, but we were importing 7,000 tons of table grapes from Armenia. 7,000 tons of table grapes from Armenia. Okay, and my question was, okay, why should I go do grapes for wine and throw them at the end of at Dirt Valley, and not plant table grapes and substitute the table grapes that's coming from Armenia? But wine here is a tradition. It's not only a tradition, it's like a cultural obligation of the Georgian. This means every Georgian who respects himself has to have a small plot with grapes, because it's like a blessing from God, or it's like, okay.
Yeah, maybe that's the reason why we are poor. I don't know why we are poor. Maybe we will be richer if we will do something. I don't know. If something is more profitable, why
I know. Look, I mean, this is especially for the grapes. I mean, but you don't find it in other things. I don't think that the government is subsidizing. Maybe they subsidize the citrus in Ajara sometimes.
Another thing.
Yeah, because it's another political issue. I am 100% against subsidies. I mean, if it's a profitable business, do it. If it's not profitable business, leave it. I mean, we have a huge, we have thousands of hectares of apple. We had thousands of hectares of apples in Lebanon. And we were losing every year. And it was always a fight between me and my father. I always told them, remove the trees, finish. I mean, leave the land, plant wheat, barley, but my father loved the apples. I mean, it was his specialty. As a matter of fact, he was a doctor in agriculture. It was always a fight with him, okay? So the bottom line, okay, after my father passed away, I removed everything. Everything. We were paying every year $800,000, $900,000, $1 million of loss. We were losing every year $1 million. I mean, which is totally insane. I removed and I rented the land for farmers. They come and plant wheat, potatoes, alfalfa, and things like this. So, bottom line, you have to adjust to the offer and demand, okay? You cannot do something because it's a traditional thing and your father was doing, your grandfather and your ancestors. You have, you know, you have to adapt to reality.
You can't survive in this way. Yeah, we are moving to the end of our program, but I still have a few questions. Like,
if it's a few questions, it's not the end of the program.
Like, if you compare Lebanon with Georgia, how they different, how they're similar? Look, you are familiar with both countries, right?
Yeah, I will tell you. The mentality of the people is very similar. I will tell you. Lebanese and Georgians are very similar. On one hand, they like to dress well, eat well, have a nice car, be with a beautiful woman, take care of the woman.
Just like Georgians.
Okay, like the Georgians. Have a lot of money, but not work very much. Okay, so it is very very similar mentalities. Right. Okay, and both populations they have humor, lot of humor, and I think that humor comes from centuries of oppression, because because we have been occupied as well by the Arabs, by the Ottomans, by the Romans, by the Greek, by the French, and we are a very small country. Like Georgia, that was occupied by so many, okay. And when you are always oppressed and under occupation, you develop the sense of humor, because it's your way out from your misery, okay? And I mean, the Germans, they have no humor, okay? I mean, you go, why? Because they were never really occupied by anyone. And the smaller countries that have been always oppressed and suffered have the most humor. I mean, during Soviet times, the Georgians had a lot of humor. I mean, because of this oppression thing. So we have this in common with Georgia. Then we have a beautiful weather, like Georgia. We have a very nice country, not as beautiful as Georgia to my taste, okay? But we are very similar. Listen,
if you compare the economies, like...
The Lebanese economy, I'm not speaking of those 4 or 5 months that are terrible for the economy, but the GDP of Lebanon is like 3 times more than Georgia. Or so was, before the devaluation of the Lebanese currency during the past 2 or 3 months. But before that, we were like around $11,000 GDP per capita. Georgia was about 4,000.
Okay. Okay. Last question now.
Yeah.
We are a political party called Girchi, right? What would be your advice for Girchi to do? We are trying to attract like businesses to. We do not like when we are financed by taxpayers. We want it to be like voluntary from business, and we will try to somehow make. Business life, or actually it's about consumers, like consumers and business both will be free from high taxes or like draconian regulations, and this is our agenda. This is how we are trying to persuade people to vote for us, and at the same time to finance us as a political party. What do you think about it, and what would be your advice for our how we can be more successful?
Look, I'll tell you. First of all, businesses usually always traditionally finance the ruling party.
Unfortunately,
because they're scared. I mean, they would freak out totally to give money to Girchi or the National Movement or European Georgia or anyone else, because then they would know that if the government doesn't change, it's still the same, then that will be retaliated against. So it's very difficult to convince a business to donate to a political party. And usually businesses that donate to political parties are either part of the party. I mean, they're founders of the party or like active. Okay, so those are usually the, okay. Now I will tell you, regarding Girchi, first of all, you're always very refreshing with your ideas and with your actions, and you have a capital of sympathy from the population, because you do funny things that leave a kind of impact on people. But by the same token, this is a double-edged sword, because you know it gives like an impression of being a little light in the political agenda. So I believe that beside those things, you need to come with something like more serious, more substantial, where people feel that it's a real political agenda, is not like a comedian agenda, or okay. I mean, very openly, I'm speaking to you as a, okay. I mean, you can remove it even from.
No, we will need to remove it.
Yeah. So I think that there should be a little more consistency in the seriousness of the message and of the attitude. Okay. But keeping at the same time the cool side of it. But you know, you cannot be cool all the time. I mean, you have to be cool, but at the same time you need to be credible or serious or trusted. Okay, that you can. Okay. This is my opinion. I mean, by observing the landscape, you see.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for inviting me. You know, I love you guys. I mean, you always come with such fantastic things, and I like Zurab very much as well. He's very creative and he's very brave also.
By the way, he is well known for having a huge negative rating. So not everyone likes him, but lots of people like him. So it's very controversial. He's a very controversial figure.
Yeah, but you know, usually controversial figures are the people who make a difference.
Right.
When you are like one of the 3.7 million, you are a number among others. But the people who live, look, I'll tell you, what's important in life is not to be popular, it's to be respected. Okay? I mean, no one can say that Zurab is a corrupted guy, or Zurab is a criminal, or Zurab, okay. No one can say this. And then people, maybe they don't like what he does, but they respect what he does, because he does what he believes in. And this is what's important. So I always say, don't look to be popular, look to be respected. That's the most important thing.
Okay, thank you very much.
And we go.